We predicted the last time that Honorable Goodluck Jonathan, His Excellency the former president of Nigeria, was going to contest elections in Nigeria again. And he had picked up forms to contest elections on the ticket of another party. And so we were prepared to come into the studio today to show you how Nigerian politics works, because in Ghana, this is unthinkable. So what has happened in Nigeria, or what was going to happen in Nigeria until 24 hours ago, was that, like President Mahama, NDC candidate, NDC former president, then comes back on the ballot as he's wanting to do now, but not on the NDC ticket, but on the ticket of the opposition, the opponent's New Patriotic Party, which is now the ruling government. That's what was about to happen in Nigeria before the last 48 hours, the last 24 hours. Goodluck Jonathan was going to run on the ticket of the APC. What has stopped him? He has just announced that he's no longer doing. What has stopped him? It is the age-old conversation that we're going to have in Ghana big time. He can only do one term. That's what has stopped Goodluck Jonathan from running on the ticket of the APC, because all his supporters and the other people are saying that, but even if he goes, he can only run one term. Therefore, they suspect that he runs the risk of losing the Congress to Tinubu, the APC. Why? Because Jonathan can run only one term. There's a lot of similarity between President Jonathan and President Mahama. President Mahama can also run only one term. And that's going to be a big conversation when we get close. Guess what? Jonathan actually purchased the forms. He said he didn't pay for it himself. Friends of his paid, yes, 240,000 United States dollars. But then, when he picked the forms, and then people came to him and said, Chief, you're going to mess up our chances. You're just going to run one term. And when you run one term, the power must go elsewhere. We want somebody who can run two terms, because there's no other person on the ballot who is going to do one term. If you had contested against Buhari in the last election in 2019, then Buhari was running one term, you are running one term. But now, you are going in, you are the only person on the ballot who's going to run one term. And so, something has prevailed over Goodluck Jonathan, and he has withdrawn from the race. Okay, so Bello, let's start. When did the information come out that Goodluck Jonathan has withdrawn from the race?
I think just within these 24 hours.
Within these 24 hours. Before then, what was the state of affairs with Jonathan? He had bought the forms?
During this election, we've seen the use of proxies to acquire forms by various political actors. One of those who went to buy the form in the name of Jonathan was an alleged Fulani group. An alleged Fulani group did the purchasing on his behalf.
Yeah.
And when the spokesman and the convener of the group was asked why he decided to buy the form, and this was what he said in his defense. We
were deceived and brainwashed by those who claimed they could do it in 2015. Now we know better. And that Jonathan, the minimum wage could buy 1 or 2 bags of rice. What do we have today? We are begging President Jonathan to forgive us. We have realized our mistakes. We want him back to complete what he started. That's Mayor Samuel, who's the spokesperson. Okay. Now, these people are APC people.
Alleged APC people.
APC people,
because there's been this issue of denial and banter denial.
Okay, so they are the group that was pushing for Goodluck Jonathan to come back.
Yeah.
On the ticket of the APC. But if Jonathan wanted to come back, why didn't he think of his party, the PDP? Has he lost control of the party?
That's a very difficult question to answer. And it also boils down to the issue of the zoning in Nigeria, the north-south something. And that also challenges the credibility of elections. Because if there's going to be zoning as 2-term north, 2-term south, automatically it's more or less of a selection than an election. Because after 8-year term in the north, the northerner is duty bound.
Okay, so the Nigerian Break the 8 is not really about parties. It's about culture and ethnic.
It's mostly
so
about
2 terms to the south, 2 terms to the north. Nothing with the east.
Well, that is when you divide Nigeria into 2 polar blocks, as it was inherited from the British system and the British colonial.
The British gave out 3
regions.
Yeah.
But prior to that, we had 2 polar blocks, the bigger north and the smaller south. Until somewhere in 1956, when there was this gradual attempt towards independence in 1960, although we started to see a convergence of both the north and the south, starting from the amalgamation of 1914. But then, one advantage the north has over the south is that was the north sometimes stay in a single block, then the south played this rivalry between the east, which is mostly Igbo dominated, and the west, which is mostly Yoruba dominated. And that also overlooks the interests of certain smaller groups like the Ijos, the Ishekiris. Mind you, Jonathan is south-south.
Yeah.
That's when we go by geopolitical zones. Nigeria has 6 geopolitical zones. The northwest, the northeast, the north central, the southwest, southeast, south-south. But then beyond this little local geopolitical stratification, We have the larger regional dynamics. But then, one of the reasons why Jonathan withdrew from the race actually was that there were some group within the Southerners who felt that it was an attempt by the North to reconsolidate power. And mind you, in Obasanjo's first year term from 1999, there was this belief that Obasanjo was actually crowned by the North because it was the Northerner that was living in office at that time, General Abdulsalam Abubakar. So if there was, I think in the first election, he performed woefully in his hometown, Abeokuta.
Because the people of Abeokuta didn't want him to be president?
Because the Southerners felt that he was too aligned with the North.
But he needed to, because the transition had been controlled by the North.
Well, the suspicion didn't start today. Obasanjo was Murtala Mohammed's deputy.
Yes.
And also when Murtala Mohammed was assassinated, there was this troika. He wasn't supposed to lead actually. He was, Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma was supposed to lead. But he was scared of his life. So he brought Obasanjo to the top. In order to balance the equation, that was how come Yar'Adua Elder was joined to the clique.
Yes.
Shehu Musa Yar'Adua.
Yes.
So there's this belief that Obasanjo has always been close to the North. So the North used Obasanjo to control Nigeria in his first term. In the
first term of the presidency.
Yeah.
Not the 70s one.
No, in the first term, 1999,
they felt
he was too subservient to Babangida at the time. So subsequently, so there was this belief that one of the reasons why he brought Yar'Adua, the election that brought Yar'Adua to power was a bit questionable.
In terms that is after Obasanjo's term, yes.
People, the credibility of the election due to some issues, there was this doubt.
Yeah.
But people say it was duty bound
to hand over to the North.
To the North.
After 2 terms.
Yeah, so there's those who believe that this is the same attempt by the North to consolidate.
So they think the North is coming for Goodluck Jonathan because he can do 1 term.
Yeah.
And after he's done 1 term, he'll go back to the
North.
The North wants him. He's a Southerner. He'll do 1 term. He goes back to the North.
To serve 2 terms.
And they'll come for another 2 terms. And so the Southerners are not happy. So the convergence with Ghana is the role of the question of 1 term. That's the similarity. So that if Jonathan could have done 2 terms, the Southerners would have been okay with it. Well, is that plausible?
If Jonathan will be able to do 2 terms,
assuming he'll be able to do 2 terms, the Southerners will be okay with it.
They'll be okay with it.
But Tinubu is a Southerner too. So why don't the Southerners coalesce behind Tinubu and push Tinubu, who can do 2 terms? And Tinubu is really a godfather of the APC party. To all intents and purposes, if Jonathan had run the contest with Tinubu at the end of May, it looks like Tinubu will win.
You know, when we go back to, let's understand the Nigerian situation now. Let's go back to the early days of independence. We had 3 regions. The North was a singular block.
Yeah.
But you had the Western region, headed by AG Action Group of Obafemi Awolowo. And you had the NCNC
yeah.
of Nnamdi
Azikiwe.
Which is more stronger in the South. Even though the party was actually formed in Lagos itself by Herbert Macaulay. So, and the Biafran Civil War, actually...
Biafran Civil War came later.
When it came, something happened in that Civil War. Initially, the Westerners were unconcerned. They felt it was a clash between the North and the East. But there was this attempt by Ojukwu to actually conquer Lagos. But to capture Lagos, you must pass through Yoruba land. So he came through the old Bende State, Edo, and was coming downwards to Lagos and was stopped at Ore. When the Biafrans were defeated in Ore, it changed the mentality of the Westerners. Now the war is now being brought to them. And that's so the kind of seed of mistrust, the deeper mistrust between the West and the East. And then culturally, because of the proximity of the West closer to the North, the Yorubas, when you're heading to the North, are more Muslim dominated and to the forest zone. And historically had more contact with the Northerners. So there's this quite sense of, despite the animosity, kind of convergence that they tend to relate far better with each other than with the Easterners.
So the West is closer to North.
To the North, in terms of cultural affinity.
And so you got Buhari getting votes in the South, isn't it? I mean, when the South votes came out, Lagos had voted for Buhari in the 2015 one that he defeated Jonathan.
Yeah,
Lagos had voted for Buhari.
Yeah, the Saudi votes he got actually came mostly from the Western region because of the proximity between...
So that I'm justifying the point you're making. Yeah. Okay, so that is why a northern candidate like Buhari will secure votes in the South.
Yeah. Okay,
but my question still stands that why is the South not backing, the stakeholders in the South, why are they not backing Tinubu?
Well, the APC...
Or is it Buhari's agenda to have Jonathan? Because when we did the research last week, what we found was that the Jonathan is a Muhammadu Buhari agenda to obscure Tinubu's chances from becoming president of Nigeria.
Yeah, there's this belief that Buhari is trying to break away from the unwritten agreement between he and Tinubu.
Correct.
And one of the reasons for the suspicion was the suspension of Adam Oshomole, who was then chairman of the APC, was seen to be more pro-Tinubu than pro-Buhari. So when there was this attempt to remove him, and then finally Buhari had to intervene and appoint an interim working committee headed by Balabuni, That was, I think, the governor of either.
But is Buhari working on his own, or he's carrying a northern agenda in terms of wanting to bring Jonathan back? Is he working on his own? Is it a personal thing, or is carrying a northern agenda? Because he's also a big stakeholder in the north, having been a military ruler and all of that. He's a big stakeholder. Is he carrying a northern agenda, or is personal?
Well, when it comes to the north, it's more like a collective agenda than individual goal. Because ever since the days of, I think, what do you call it, Ahmadu Bello and the first coup, there's this belief that even Sharia law being implemented in Nigeria was actually a political calculation than a religious calculation. Because if you go back to history, most Northerners have ruled Nigeria than Southerners. And these were Muslim generals.
Most Northerners are what?
Northerners have ruled Nigeria more than Southerners.
Oh, they have, yes.
And they were Muslims. But why didn't they implement Sharia law when the North was in control?
Of the government, like Buhari is in control now.
But when Obasanjo got power, then there was this clamor for Sharia. There are those who believe that it was an attempt by the North to find ways and means of weakening Obasanjo control. Because if you go by constitutionality, then Nigeria is neither a secular state nor a theocratic state. You can have multiple conforming laws in one country, but you cannot have two antagonistic laws. In letter and in spirit, Sharia law contradicts Nigerian constitution.
Yeah, it does. It violates human rights. It contradicts many modern constitutions.
The northern states are theocratic, embedded within a so-called secular entity. So people see it as an attempt by the North to always cheapen or weaken the influence of the South. And another issue.
Okay, let's move on quickly.
And then, unfortunately,
so who is this?
This is Peter Obi. The last time I did the list, I had an oversight, and I really regretted doing that though, because he was a very strong contender within PDP.
For the PDP seat.
Yeah.
So he's challenging Atiku.
Yeah, he was actually.
He's a governor of where? Anambra State.
Two-term governor of Anambra State, and he was his running mate in the previous election, 2019.
He was whose running mate? Atiku's running mate in the election that they lost.
The one they lost.
So he's also running for the PDP position. Is Obasanjo still in PDP politics?
Obasanjo, I think, has grown beyond party politics to a statesman. One of the reasons why Obasanjo was actually supported in the first instance he came for 1999 was that Obasanjo was the first military man in Nigerian history to voluntarily went to the barrack.
Yes, then.
In 79.
In the 70s, yeah.
And did one thing very peculiar. When he was going, he ensured that every member of his regime retired alongside him. Because he wanted to stabilize the system.
I don't know whether you can give Obasanjo credit for that, because it was a sort of global move, like what we had in 1992. It happened in Ghana. The SMC of Achampo were going away. And in going away, they were all retiring and they were handed over to a constitutional rule. The timetable is very similar between Ghana's 79 election and Nigeria's 79 election. And the Ghana's military rule from 1972 up to 1979, Nigeria's military rule from that time, all the military people coming in line as Obasanjo, the last person. So I'm not sure whether credit should be given to Obasanjo himself, because there was international pressure on West Africa to democratize. And so it happened in 79 in Ghana, it happened in 79 in Nigeria. At that time, Ivory Coast was very stable with Houphouët-Boigny, so they were not a big part of it. Togo were stable within the Cold War context with Yadema, so they were not a big part of it. Blaise Upper Volta was still Upper Volta. It was a bit unstable at the time. But Ghana and Nigeria had always been important to international powers in West Africa. So really, maybe not so much Obasanjo's desire to move, but even though we have to give him some credit. But it was a wave in West Africa at the time.
But then the advantage that emerged out of his decision to take everybody along was when we compare his exit to Babangida's infamous exit. Babangida left technically, but wanted to be the power behind the scene, and brought Ernest Shonekan.
Babangida was not happy that Moshood Abiola won the election.
So he brought Shonekan.
So it was a personal decision
so he brought
to obscure Moshood Abiola and take him out.
But then he left. Yeah. He left. I think
if Abiola had not won the election on June 10, Babangida may not have intervened. But he was frightened that Abiola had won the election.
So what I'm saying is that he left Abacha to protect Shonekan.
Yes.
But because Abacha was a co-member of his old regime, Abacha did the opposite, overthrew Shonekan.
Yes, he did.
So that's the advantage of Obasanjo's decision of taking everybody along.
Abacha's decision to overthrow Shonekan was also a military decision, because Shonekan's capacity and competence to maintain the stability after the murder of Moshood Abiola and the denial of Abiola's presidency was throwing Nigeria into a civil war. Abiola was very popular and he had control of the media. Yeah. The Concord newspaper and all that were Abiola. And Abiola had international connection. And so the denial of Abiola's presidential victory affected a lot of people. Shonekan did not have the oomph. You needed a military general who was feared to handle Nigeria at the time. Otherwise, it was going to blow up. Babangida had created a total mess and exited. Abacha's decision to enter, I think, was a noble one.
Abacha
In terms of military context, because he came in to stabilize the thing, of course. He later on then took Nigeria on the downward spiral of human rights abuse and just totally messed up Nigeria, became a pariah state and all that. But the intervention was necessary at the time because Shonikan was not going to be able to control it.
But it equally has a personal twist to it. There's no coup in Nigeria history that did not have Abacha's.
Abacha's, yes. So
and
Abacha
he was one person that every coup plotter would either go to ask with his support or refuse to prevent. Because if you decide to prevent your coup, it doesn't succeed. That was one. And it only takes us back to 1966, the first coup. Technically, there were 3 coups in a year. Because Ironsi, who was the GOC of the army, was supposed to protect the remnant of the regime. He equally used the same argument of Abacha, that the remnant of the regime under the leadership of Nwafor Orinzu, who was the Senate president, and by the absence of the president, who was supposed to be the leader at the time, could not secure the polity. So he came and intervened. So he could see the personal aspect of it. But then, this is another candidate.
Okay, let's move on. I was going to say something about Chief Okoti Ebom, who was a reason for the coup, because he was a Southerner who was becoming very, very powerful financially, and the Northerners were not quite happy with that. So he was executed on the first day of the coup, Okoti Ebom. But we'll talk about that later. Let's go.
This is another candidate, Aminu Waziri Tubonwali. He was the former Speaker of the Nigerian Senate. That's the President of the Senate, rather. And he's also a governor.
And this is PDP or APC?
The same PDP.
PDP, okay.
These are one of the 2 candidates. And another controversial argument is the application of the Article 137, Section 3, as amended. This law was actually passed in 2017.
What does the law say?
A person who was sworn in to complete the term of which another person was elected as a president shall not be elected to such office for more than a single term.
It's very complicated.
So now the issue
is... so let's go through again. A person who was sworn in to complete a term. So that is Jonathan, sworn in to complete the term of Yar'Adua. Okay. For which another person was elected. That's for which Shehu Yar'Adua had been elected and he died. As president, shall not be elected to such office for more than a single term. So the single term is counted excluding the one that he continues?
So the single term is counted with the one he served, he inherited, and the one he served, making 2 terms. So the
it just shows that the Nigerian constitution has not got the legal sophistication of the Ghanaian one. Because the Ghanaian one is very interesting. If you take over the power in the first 2 years of the 4-year term, it is considered a full term. If you take power the next 2 years of the first term, it's not considered a term. So John Mahama took power in the 4th year of the Mills administration in 2012. The election was won in 2008, sworn in 2009. It was running until 2013, 7 January. And John Mahama became president on 24th July of 2012. So that's considered in the second half of the Mills term. Therefore, under the Ghanaian constitution, John Mahama is not deemed to have served 1 term. So that's not 1 term. So he finishes the term, he wins his election, which he did, and he served 1 term. He has 1 more full term to go. This kind of arrangement where they don't say when. So even if the thing happens in the second term, 1 month to go, even if it's 1 month to go, you are sworn in.
I'm sure the Ghanaian constitution, that aspect was preconceived.
Yes.
Was there.
And it shows a lot of thinking went into it.
But in the Nigerian election, in the Nigerian situation, it was brought into effect in 2017.
After the Jonathan
debacle.
So it was targeted at Jonathan?
For the Jonathan debacle, it took the courage of Saraki, actually, turned over power to Jonathan, because he had to convince the Senate by passing the doctrine of necessity.
When Yar'Adua died?
When Yar'Adua was going for medical checkup in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
He didn't hand over power to Jonathan. So Jonathan was virtually incapacitated.
Their constitution doesn't say the president, when he's leaving the jurisdiction, should hand over power.
He was left to his discretion. So
it's the discretion of the president?
Yeah, so he went to
the Nigerian constitution must learn from the Ghanaian
and by then, Jonathan was not making substantive decision. So Nigeria was virtually leaderless.
So when he died, what happened?
So it took the courage of Saraki. No, even before he died, it took the courage of Saraki to bring the doctrine of necessity into the chamber of the Senate for the law to be debated, for power to be handed over to Jonathan. But then, when this law was passed, it was 2017, you could see some element of, I don't know whether vindictiveness or deliberate attempt by APC to consolidate power at the time, because they just came back from winning election.
But this cannot have a retrospective application.
But there's this argument. But you could see after PDP ruled for 16 years, APC coming to power, this attempt to also maintain your hold on power. So it could be that this law emerged out of that kind of concern. But then there are those who are arguing for it either retrospective or prospective application.
It cannot be retrospective.
So
I don't know how it can be.
On the retrospective,
in Ghana's constitution, it's very clear that no law shall have retrospective effects. It's fundamental to any development of any society. But so I'm not sure why anybody would think
but
that
Jonathan's withdrawal has actually ended the debate.
It has.
It could have gone to the Supreme Court.
But I'm guessing that he withdrew because he knew that Tinubu would defeat him.
No, I think one of the reasons he withdrew, aside the issue of the Southern agreement, was that he didn't get the solid assurance of Buhari that he will be anointed as the consensus candidate. You know, one very interesting thing about Nigerian politics is that
consensus candidate in APC,
of course,
when Tinubu is running,
even the primaries, the chairman,
Tinubu is not going to stop running.
The chairman that emerged out of APC primaries was actually a consensus candidate.
But this one is only happening. It's happening a few weeks from now, so the campaign is over. Tinubu is in. He's not going to compromise.
You know, most Nigerian parties actually don't have ideological divide.
Yes, they do.
Most of these big. The only time Nigeria had ideological divide was in the First Republic.
Yes.
Awolowo was a socialist.
Nigeria is all right wing. Yeah, they're all right wing.
No, but the left
Buhari can say what he wants, but APC is right wing.
The left wing are just they exist, but they're just at the fringes.
Very, very fringe. So the two main political parties that have been running Nigeria since 1999 are all right-wing parties. So they don't have left-wing. It makes their life a bit easier. Sorry, I'm a right-wing thinker, so. but it makes life a bit easy if all the political parties are thinking to the right. These left-wing people, they disturb us, don't they? They worry us. They like lying too much.
And sometimes when they are going for primaries, they always this attempt to have, because if you don't, due to the size and the number of offices, if you don't really manage the situation very well, the blowback could be very disastrous. So they always attempt this consensus candidate where they do horse trading behind the scene.
Yeah.
So even the party chairman emerged out of horse trading. So Jonathan felt that since he wasn't given that assurance, his legacy was at stake.
Because Buhari's, and you saw that when Buhari's wife did the fasting break, Tinubu was there. And Tinubu is Muslim apparently.
Yeah.
Yes, which is very interesting. He's famous Lagos governor who is Muslim. There are conversations about his age and all that. People believe that he's actually 86 and he says he's 70. But that's a different conversation.
There's another interesting conversation about his adherence to the faith actually, because his wife is a Christian. So the North has this.
But for what Tinubu has done to Lagos, in transferring Lagos and creating Fashola as his inherited person, transforming Lagos dramatically over 25 years, doesn't he deserve to be president of Nigeria?
Retrospectively, we can say that
Tinubu deserves to be president of Nigeria.
Tinubu's management of Lagos
actually
was what also motivated Nigerians to give APC the chance.
And Tinubu's management of Lagos is the point that I've been making in Ghana that allowed the president to pass the law so that we can have people elected as mayors. Tinubu was elected as a mayor. Today he's coming to the presidency and said that, see what I did with Lagos. Other people are coming to the Ghanaian presidency and we don't know what they've done. They can't say anything. But if we have that system and somebody has gone to be mayor of Kumasi when NDC was in power and now he wants to be MPP presidential candidate, he can say that, see what I've done with Kumasi. He can see. I believe that Nigerians are going to vote for Tinubu for the simple reason of what he did with Lagos. I think he's qualified. As for the age, I don't know. They say he's 86 and he says he's 70. I'm not sure. I don't know which is which. But he looks like a very strong man. On the fasting break, he was walking. He was hanging around like anybody else. So, should we conclude on Tinubu will go here? The odds, we give Tinubu the odds 1 to 2. 1 to 2 that Tinubu will win.
Tinubu has an advantage over other candidates if the zoning should take effect, that the power will not be tilted to the south. But the problem
power is due for the south now.
That is if, because
there's Buhari
there's this belief that Buhari is attempting to chip the block.
But he's failed with Jonathan. That was Buhari's trump card.
But then Tinubu also has a problem. Most of his contenders are also from his own backyard.
He will defeat them.
And you also recently you have this.
But does he have money? Does Tinubu have money?
Very, very dusted.
Oh, he has.
You have this. You have
Let's run through. Our sports minister is ready for the conversation. Let's run through it. Let's go.
And then who is this? And this is another problem. The candidates keep rising up the list. Yeah.
With 3 weeks to go.
This is the current president of the Nigerian
Senate. Who does this guy look like? Prophet Osubempa, doesn't he? But it's certainly not him. Okay, let's go through. Who is Aisha Yesufu?
She's a leading activist in Nigeria. She was actually at the forefront of NSAS. This lady with the hijab, this Muslim lady. Yeah, she's one of those. And this is what she was saying. Her assertion was that
Tinubu doesn't fight Atiku over you. Jonathan doesn't fight Buhari over you. Peter Obi has never fought Yemi Osibanjo over you. Saraki has never fought Kwankwaso over you. Yet you fight everyone and everybody over them. If you need 100 million naira to save your life right now, will you see
It's like,
referring to the 100 million naira that Jonathan used to pay
so
there.
the argument is just that the whole argument of zoning, ethnic identity in the
It
politics
has nothing to do with the
is just
ordinary
to suit,
Nigerians.
it's just to suit the elite.
And nothing to do with ordinary Nigerians. So what's her point? What should ordinary Nigerians? Shouldn't vote?
Use your conscience. You have a lot of
Use your conscience to vote.
Yeah, you have a lot of parties on the ballot box.
Okay, that's okay. Voting is always about conscience.
And then there's another aspect of which
Frank Donga, what is he saying?
He's also arguing about what 100 million naira can do.
100 million naira can get a good combined harvester, decent irrigation system, solar solution for a farm settlement, agro-processing plant, small scale, primary health care for rural farmers, low interest loan for 10 farmers, community-based agro storage, fixed roads to farming areas. So what's his point? The $240,000 price for the thing is too much.
Could have served other purpose.
Could have served other purpose. Okay, but how do you get the 200,000 from Jonathan for other purpose?
And that's why people are still surprised at Buhari's decision, because when he was contesting, APC's form was actually 20 million naira, and he claimed he couldn't afford, and he took support of donation for.
But he as president didn't decide the 100 million.
But he's the leader of the party.
Yeah, but the party has a chairman, so it's the party chairman that decided that one.
No, but you see,
Buhari is not a great
the argument is if he could intervene to deal with the issue of the chairmanship tussle within the party,
then he could have intervened.
He could also take effective decisions.
Okay, the last one, he says that can the Northern Group donate the 100 million
so
from rejected by Goodluck Jonathan to another aspirant? Is it transferable? Educate me, please. Okay, so altogether, at the end of this month, maybe before the end of this month, we'll get more information from Nigeria and bring back to our viewers a bit more on the latest in the Nigerian situation. But that's Bello and I having a job about Nigeria. So we're going to bed now. I'm supporting Tinubu. Who are you supporting?
Well, I'll keep my candidate to my chest.
Okay. I think that Bola Tinubu is going to win the APC leadership, and he's going to be in pole position to be president of Nigeria. Never mind how old he is. I don't know. He says he's 70. I think that's the official one that we have to take. Those saying that he's 86, I don't know whether they gave birth to him or they were
football age
when he gave birth to him. And Atiku might be on the ticket for the APC. I think PDP, I think Goodluck Jonathan has been sensible in withdrawing from the race. But Nigeria is a very interesting country, so we're going to keep watching it. Bello, thank you. Thank you for the report. All right.